Is anyone out there? Does anybody listen or care anymore? We are living on a dying planet. We're killing everything that's alive. And anyone who tries to deny it wears a tie and gets paid to lie. So I wrote these songs for a dying planet. I'm sorry, but I'm telling the truth. And for everybody trying to save it, these songs are for you too. Is there anyone out there?
Hey, welcome to Legal Knowledge. I'm Michael Loban. It's live today on Friday, April 17th of 2015. This is episode 709, The Real Earth Day. And if you're watching live, please go ahead and call in at the top of the hour, or go ahead and tweet or Facebook or email your questions. We'll have the addresses down here. Go to the website and you can find them all. Send in your comments and we'll read them on the air. If you're not watching live, our replays are every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. and you can catch any of our shows anytime on the internet at illegalknowledge.com. I just want to say that Illegal Knowledge is still one of the few access shows that still broadcasts monthly. And due to the city budget cuts that have been terrible this last year, we still need your financial support to continue bringing you these quality monthly shows. You can donate to us by sending an email to support@illegalknowledge.com for more information, and you can also underwrite us, and you can get your name or your business name and details on the screen in the beginning of the show or at the end. And if you want to do that, please send email to underwrite@illegalknowledge.com if you'd like to help. Please also use hashtags IKTV, IKTV Live, or Illegal Knowledge if you're on Facebook or Twitter. And you can go to illegalknowledge.com and click on the Facebook link to message us from there, or send email to ask@illegalknowledge.com, or tweet @IKTV Live and message us from there. Whichever way you do it, send your questions now and I'll read them on the air, or call in at the top of the hour and you can talk to us directly. All right, tonight we're going to be talking about the recent corporatization of Earth Day and how to reclaim Earth Day from this corporate greenwashing. How we can hold the corporate interests accountable for their actions, including how the very sponsors of Earth Day are in fact contributing to global climate change. And we can give you the whole rundown on all the Earth Day related and Earth Day events which are coming up in the next few weeks and tomorrow and a couple days after, including a very new and exciting event known as Water Chautauqua, should I say. It's named after a town, New York. So you have a very green and natural show planned tonight. But before we get to that, I'd just like to talk about a few things. First of all, in Tucson transportation, we may do a show in June about this. There are still a bunch of issues that are going on. One is Broadway, the street Broadway widening. They've now passed a narrower version of the 6-lane widening plan through the committee. There are 2 meetings left until the mayor and council will be asked to vote on the alignment, and that vote should be taking place on Tuesday, June 9th. On Thursday, April 23rd, the day after Earth Day, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Sabar Shrine Hall at 450 South Tucson Boulevard. There will be the next meeting, and there will be one more meeting on April 30th, which is the Citizen Task Force meeting. So make sure you try to attend those. You can check on the website. We have a list. You can sign up for the list there for Suzanne. And you can still give your public comments on the Ronstadt Transit Center improvement plan and the PIMA Association of Governments Transportation Improvement Plan. Again, see the website for info, and you can get on those lists there. In other news, the city wants to increase the water rates and fees. There's going to be a hearing on Tuesday, May the 19th at 5:30 p.m. at the regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting in the Tucson City Hall. So be there. It looks like the mayor and council are also dropping the whole no assembly required and no picnics allowed laws that they were trying to pass last month. But keep watching, keep your eye on them, and we will too. So it seems to me that in national news that the police training programs in the U.S. are doing it wrong. If we have this many shootings of particularly unarmed and mostly black men caught, which are now being routinely caught on camera. So the training programs, I guess, seem to be pretty good at spotting the black men that are unarmed, but they seem to not tell you anything about how to spot a cell phone. We all know that the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, is a job killer, and it contains provisions that would undermine the internet, hurt wages, equality, kill all sorts of wildlife. It's terrible. But then there's also a TPIP and a TPA and a TAA. But it seems, and here's where it gets confusing, that the Democrats will not support a TPA without a TAA. And we need the TPA to get to a TPP. So it seems that we can't P unless we have A to go some with TPA. But either way, there's some little TPIP lingering out there waiting to screw us all. Anyway, the petitions and a better description for real this time are on the website. Go check that out. Okay, so let me introduce our environmentally friendly panel tonight. First, we have Dave Ewald. He is a organization called Coalitions of Mutual Endeavor, or CumWeb, as you can see there on the screen. Dave also ran for Senate in 2010, Arizona Senate, and he's doing the whole Reclaim Earth Day movement, and also next to Dave Ewald, and this is going to get very confusing because we have two Daves on the show tonight. We have Dave Croteau, the Green Party the Green Party County Committee member. He was also a mayoral candidate in 2007 and other years, and Pima County Sheriff candidate, most recently in 2012. And so we have a great panel here tonight. The thing I do a little research when I do these shows. When I was looking, I figured I'd look and see the history of Earth Day, and I noticed something that was really interesting that I never knew. That it was the Earth Day. It was started in 1970. It was supposed to begin on the 21st of March in 1970. Don't worry about that. It was for the equinox, to signify equilibrium. The whole premise of that was very interesting to me, and I think it carries through to what is certainly happening today in terms of what we're doing from a green perspective, trying to get a re-equilibrium established in terms of what the corporate dominance is now shifting into one side. We're trying to balance it back out. You guys want to talk about the real extent of it? I noticed that it really sort of started in 1990, but with Hewlett-Packard jumping in, what happened after that made it so terrible? I mean, we have a whole slew of, I mean, in Tucson at least.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, the thing about Earth Day, and the real reason that Earth Day, our planet, our one and only life support system, didn't have its own national holiday, so that was one of the things to get people to start thinking about that. Because it's pretty primary to not only our lives, but to the economy. I mean, our entire economy is based on stuff that comes from the Earth. And then all the pollution and toxins that go back into the Earth after we're done with this stuff. It's, I talk about a lot, the idea of industrialism, which is taking stuff, from the Earth and making it worthless with this little short fondling period in between. But that concept of growth, of stuff, of materialism, that as we've become separated from the Earth, quite literally in a lot of ways, we try to find all these substitutes for it. Yeah. And right now, I mean, the thing that the Earth is in the biggest danger from is global warming. And global warming, a lot of people, of course, think about it as just, greenhouse gases, but that's not it. Or they call it climate change. Right. And, climate change is a symptom.
Yeah.
It's, the globe is warming, which is why the climate's changing. But when you start looking at that and you start looking at why that's happening, and so global warming isn't just greenhouse gases. That's the big part of it, but it's also deforestation. It's changes in land use patterns, or otherwise known as sprawl. Yeah. We're just tearing apart the system in so many different ways. But we're doing all that stuff to protect corporate profit. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. That's what industrialism is really all about.
Too. Yeah. There's a whole lot of extraction.
Extraction that goes with it. I mean, you can't make stuff without extracting stuff from the earth first, and they do the same thing with overfishing and on and on and on. Yeah. So all these things that are causing this catastrophic problem are all because of the corporations that want to continue making more stuff and making us believe that we need more stuff. And so as we start thinking about what we really need to do to mitigate global warming, well, we need to quit doing so much damage, which doesn't support profit. And so a lot of corporations started looking at ways that they could do greenwashing, pretend like they're earth friendly.
Basically, slap a green label on it.
Right, slap a green label on it. It's like, your food that says natural, and it's really natural GMOs and, natural this, that, and the other thing. It's actually really, really bad for you.
Yes.
And so, the whole concept of Earth Day is to get people to become more aware of how we can be kinder to the Earth, how we can support our life support system, because, the Earth is a system, and we're a system. We need to stay in balance. So looking at ways that we can do that don't necessarily support, the corporate profits, but can actually improve quality of life. Well, the corporations don't like to hear that. And so you hear about, the corporatization or the corporate takeover of Earth Day. They're trying to sponsor it and put their names out there and make everybody think that they somehow are supportive of doing things in a way that supports life. And they don't. I mean, Raytheon, of course, is a prime example. Everybody, it's the environmental movement's favorite whipping boy in Tucson.
Okay, now just to be clear, Raytheon is actually sponsoring Earth Day.
Is actually sponsoring
in Tucson.
Well,
in Tucson.
It's kind of strange the way they're doing it. They used to sponsor it directly, but now they sponsor it through an environmental front group, basically.
The Southern Arizona Environmental Management Society.
As if the environment needs management. The environment manages itself quite fine.
Right, exactly.
They need to get these people out of there. Anyway. And it causes cognitive dissonance when anybody stops and thinks about it. It's like, okay, what is friendly to the Earth about missiles and drones and all these things? And there's another movement within the environmental movement that says, okay, these corporate bad actors, well, let's just boycott them. Well, it's kind of hard to boycott Raytheon unless you're buying Stinger missiles from them. And that's not something that all of us really kind of do, but it's, those aspects of it. And so what we're trying to do with the Reclaim Earth Day is there's a number of things that could actually be done. We could start looking at maybe getting the city to help sponsor neighborhood associations and community organizations and things like that to sponsor Earth Day, as opposed to the corporations that are sponsoring it, or to just start doing our own Earth Day. We've got some options there, so those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Okay, so one of the people that do the sponsorship is Rosemont Copper. Now, they're particularly bad users of water. They're definitely terrible extractors. I think they fit all the bad qualities. What were they thinking? I mean, geez, how is it that you think that do they really think that people will just look at that and say, oh, Rosemont Copper, Earth Day, and just suddenly, what is it? I mean, you said cognitive dissonance, but really, I mean, the Raytheon, Rosemont. Here's who's on this Southern Arizona environment. We have a Brush Wellman, Materion is what they're known now.
Yep.
I would assume there's like plenty of other ones. You can look this up, Southern Arizona Environmental Management Society, and see, there's. What do we do to, other than just, obviously we're doing it right here, we're saying to people, this thing's a fraud. This thing that the city of Tucson is doing while partnering with these corporations, okay, that has nothing to do with Earth Day, and how do we fix this?
Yeah. Well, how do we fix that? That's kind of a long story.
You shut down the corporations, really, I guess, right?
Well, shut down, this is one of the things that, when we start talking about, I mean, we've all been raised to believe that economic growth is necessary for progress and prosperity. I mean, we all believe that story. Just,
And Dave C., please feel free to
jump in, Dave. But the concept, it's like Materion. They build, stuff for the nuclear and defense industries, and they use beryllium, and beryllium is a toxin. And it's, their workers get beryllium poisoning, and beryllium poisoning is, it's like only 1/3 of the people that get it die. The other 2/3 are just crippled for life. And so we need to start thinking about how much of this stuff do we really need, and is using up all of our own resources, so we have to go invade sovereign countries to steal their resources so we can have more stuff. I mean, that's neither ethical nor moral.
Right.
So what do we start doing differently? And without moving back to the cave, because that's always, one of the big arguments about the environmental movement. You want us to,
move
back to the cave and stuff like that. Well, when you actually look at what's going on globally,
we don't need Raytheon missiles.
We don't need Raytheon missiles. We don't need the majority of the stuff that's being produced, because when you look at it, it takes 1/3 of the global population to build everything the entire globe consumes. So that means
if we recycled the copper, we wouldn't need the Rosemont.
We wouldn't need that. There's more copper in landfills than there are out in the mountains right now. Yeah, and the idea that if 1/3 of the population produces everything, we should all be working 2/3 less with full global employment.
Right.
Well, that doesn't support economic growth. It doesn't support corporate profits. Is what it doesn't really support.
That's what it doesn't support. Yeah.
But we start looking at a culture that's based on planned obsolescence. Humans don't really want more stuff once their basic needs have been met. I mean, that's it. You have to manufacture desire, and there have been studies and research going back to the 40s on this stuff.
Sure.
And so we start thinking about, well, we could actually still build stuff if we built it to last, if we built it so it was easily repairable, if we got back into the idea of rebuilding those community bonds about sharing. I mean, there are certain things that people buy that they only use, once a year. Why does everybody need to buy one each of those, as opposed to going down to your neighborhood sharing center or something like that, and using it when it's needed?
I think
and
people are starting to do that now, aren't they?
People are starting to do that.
Yeah.
They're starting to look at this, but these things don't support economic growth either. And then we're then we get into the fossil fuel problem. Of course, we've all the cheap, abundant, fossil fuels have already been used up.
Tar sands.
So now we're doing tar sands and deep sea drilling and
Arctic,
and everywhere else. And so if we weren't running out of oil, we wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Well, see, one of the problems, this gets tied back into economic growth. One of the problems with the way our financial system is set up is that all those corporations that are listed on international stock exchanges, their valuation is based on future growth. Their future growth is dependent on increasing supplies of cheap and abundant fossil fuels. Well, all those burning all that stuff, contributes to global warming. And so there's all these other aspects that kind of tie into it. So we need to start thinking about what we could do differently, not only in our own lives, but from a policy perspective too, at a social level. And getting our governments to actually start thinking about, okay, we've got the Paris climate talks coming up in December.
Yes, that's
Let's
true.
do something that actually starts mitigating this.
One of the things that the government can do is to listen to the environmentalists that now know the science. And we have an opportunity to focus on the Chautauqua we're talking about later on, of the resources that Tucson has and the value that we have on a sustained development that can sustain things more than a military-industrial complex.
Sure.
You mentioned Raytheon.
And the whole idea, because I'm not sure if people know what Chautauqua, I wasn't sure exactly how to pronounce it. Say it again for everyone.
Chautauqua.
Chautauqua. Okay, so this is named after a town in New York. It's just basically a group of people getting together and learning from each other and from other people that are teaching. Is that it's like a teaching?
If I can say it in the simplest.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dave's great to listen to, and he's brilliant, and that's why I don't mind having him an opportunity to share. We both talked about this event in New York that traveled around at the start of our country to educate the rural people about our democracy. And so teams of entertainers and politicians and artisan and educators would go out into the rural community and have a week-long workshop, entertainment, teaching to spread democracy and how our democracy works in the rural area. Well, we have an opportunity in Tucson to talk about the most precious resource, our water. At Chautauqua, we're planning for May 9th. But back to the government's influence with the corporate sponsors of this. I'm a member of the Prima County Green Party, a county committee, and the Green Party is established as a choice in the coming Board of Supervisors race. So we do have an opportunity to run a platform of green agenda in the upcoming elections to decide for Rosemont. But I want to talk about
that is happening pretty soon, where they're going to.
It keeps being judged back from committee to committee. The county has been very supportive of not having Rosemont. Yeah. But I want us to bring up the fact that before Raytheon was Raytheon, it was General Dynamics. Before General Dynamics, it was Hughes Aircraft. Yeah. And it's a Superfund cleanup. And the county is now giving tax break on the property that Raytheon sits on. They're sitting on the land that was polluted and killed people on the south side. There's a cancer-causing agent that's in our groundwater that was put there by Hughes Aircraft. It sits under Raytheon Missile Corporation, and now they're going to the county to get a tax break on their property from the county to build a ring road so they expand the military-industrial complex missile machine. So it's so ironic to see the largest fossil fuel user in the world is the U.S. military-industrial complex. Sure. And the unhealthy environment for Tucsonans to survive on the military who's reducing the fossil or using up most of the fossil fuels as a consumer. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So bringing back the teaching opportunity, because that's what a Chautauqua is, that's what the Green Party is. We have to be out front of what we're all facing so that we have the real scientific proof and knowledge to go forward with our carrying capacity.
And so the Chautauqua would lend itself to showing other people how to proceed on that path as well, then, essentially.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. You can kind of think of it as an intellectual county fair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got food and entertainment and stuff for the kids, and it does have it has everything but the rides. Yeah, and it's free. It's free.
All right. All right. So really, that it's a water Chautauqua. It's about water primarily.
Yeah, this one.
There's a lot of water problems that we're getting into.
Yeah. One of the things about the Chautauquas, or the way we have them planned going forward over the coming months, is to start out with water, because that's the most important resource in southern Arizona, in the Sonoran Desert, in the Southwest, basically, but on transportation and energy and governance, looking at some of these issues from that perspective, where you bring local experts that are part of the solution. The things that they're doing, like for water, Watershed Management Group and dry water harvesters and all these local organizations are doing just, excellent stuff that people need to become aware of. Because one of the things that the awareness raising aspect of all this is to help people understand that there really is an alternative. And it's an alternative that, if done properly, will work with life. Work the way life works, and life works by self-organizing into networks and mutual support. I mean, that's basic science anymore.
And that's what your
that's
your
what our
organization
coalition's
is
about.
Coalitions of mutual endeavor.
Right.
It's a mutual support. Yeah.
Building those things and seeing where our commonalities
Because
are and
in
how
the
we
US,
can work together.
We have this awful rugged individualism, and it's you got to fend for yourself and do everything. It doesn't matter. But it's really not that. I mean, really, life involves everyone helping each other. If there really isn't anything someone can do entirely on their own.
Exactly true. I mean, everything is connected to everything else. Everything's interconnected. And so what we're coming to see from modern science today is that ancient indigenous wisdom was actually pretty correct. And so how do we tap back into that and get people to understand that right now, everything we're doing, your concept, what you're talking about with, rugged individualism,
that's not my
anybody can do, can do anything on their own, and nobody can. It's literally impossible. And the way that the synergies work, when you start getting groups together and people working together, you actually are more effective. You're more efficient. You're working the way life works. So we could actually start shifting in a major way. Transitioning to a sustainable future is a term that I use, and use less energy and take less time doing it and have more time. I mean, this is the thing, about modern culture, industrialism.
To dig it out of the ground, it takes much more energy than it does to, say, pick it up and reuse it.
Yeah. But, that whole concept that, as we start taking more stuff and using more stuff and just generally wasting more stuff, because that all supports profit. It's all profitable. The more we can do, that we don't need to do that, and we could actually have better lives by doing things differently. I mean, because industrial. One of the things that they talk about is that the big promise of industrial culture has always been increased leisure time.
Yeah.
But no one has increased leisure time.
But here's the thing, it's not even that. There are people who are out of work, they have plenty of
leisure time,
It's just they're not getting paid commensurately for their increase in productivity.
Yeah. Well, there's another side to that story, too. It's kind of strange, but instead of having more leisure time, we're commuting longer hours. We have these far-flung suburbs where you drive till you qualify. Yeah. And instead of having more leisure time, Americans spend 1 billion working hours per year in order to buy more leisure wear. And so the whole system is just totally off kilter. Yeah. It really doesn't make any sense. But there is an alternative. And again, so this is what the talk was all about, is getting people to understand there's things we can do differently that work with life, that are more fulfilling. Because it's, the Martin Luther King and 20 million other, philosophers throughout time have all said, everybody does better when everybody does better.
Yeah, that's true. Go ahead.
One of the things that the education can do for Tucsonans is to bring together the right people that we have to solve Tucson's problems. Education is going to be the only way in which we're going to be able to survive, but we've got to be able to hear what the scientists are saying. Right now, the corporations have orchestrated the media to give us a story that keeps the flow of oil going, keeps consuming the way we're consuming. It's eating up the resources of the planet, and so we need a timeout. and one of the things that Chautauqua was going to do is to bring us up to speed. And hopefully the educators in the University of Arizona can come on board. As I was talking earlier, we know that the University of Arizona is a land mass so big that even the EPA requires it to report its storm runoff.
Yeah.
The University of Arizona, I would challenge them to manage their storm runoff. When the rain falls on campus right now, it lands on 67% roof and asphalt asphalt surface.
Sure.
It runs off under Tucson High and a storm runoff, and it hasn't met EPA standards for many years. Yet this university can afford a TV screen to watch instant replays in a football field,
sure,
but not manage it. So I would challenge the university for a freshman class to say, this freshman class, by the time this freshman class graduates in 4 years, they're going to find a way to make sure that the water that lands on campus leaves as clean as it landed on campus. Okay. And teach us how to manage water in the desert. Have it a teaching moment for this teaching institution to spend more money on managing water on campus than a new trigger mechanism at Raytheon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because that is more important. We are in a desert, as I often say, and you can't just go wasting it. And all right, so speaking of that, Tucson gets cap water. All right, so we get, 145,000 or so acre feet annually, or some number near that.
Sounds right.
It says that I've seen online on the cap water site and a couple others that our current allocation might last only 5, maybe 8 years. And some are saying we might face a shortage in 2016, if not 2017. This shows me that we really need to be taking that water that's landing on the rooftops and either putting it right directly into the ground, not having it run off into fields and shouldn't it go, what normally happens in the desert without buildings is it lands and sinks right into the ground. Okay, normally, yes, assumedly. Unless there's a whole lot of rain.
The washes,
and then, it goes down washes, right. But mostly, and what we're doing is by paving over everything, is we're just forcing all this runoff. And then we're ending up with a whole lot of area where the city is built, which is undergoing subsidence and much further, the wells get deeper and deeper, the groundwater goes away because we're pushing our aquifer out away from the city. Wouldn't we be better just trying to, cut little curbside things and do what people are doing? Is that a good idea? What do you suppose about that?
Well,
all those water harvesting mechanisms,
watershed management. There's so many resources. There was a group from the Conservation Corps that was doing curb cutouts to have the storm runoff go into the tree lane. So there has been some attempts to modify our streetscape so that the storm runoff come. Rincon Heights, south of the University of Arizona, has done a wonderful job with a project that brings islands that come out and absorb the water. So yes, but again, it's about teaching and waking people up that it's important.
Knowing what's in the water too, that would be a good idea. Yes, it doesn't even occur to a lot of people, but yes.
Well, it's interesting. I served on a campus community relations committee, which is all the 9 neighborhoods that surround the university. And when risk management brought their annual report to what they have to report to EPA about storm runoff, they tried to blame the fecal matter in the water test on neighborhood dogs, that the neighbors were bringing their dogs on campus, and that was the reason the water was
so they were hitting the dog shit in the dog.
Well, meanwhile, I hear from artists that for years painted in there and everything got poured down the sink. So,
okay. I see.
So take responsibility for our environment. And Tucson, because we are in a desert, has a perfect opportunity to demonstrate worldwide what water means to people who have to survive in a desert.
I mean, Lake Mead is essentially drying up. Is that really? I mean, because with the Colorado River, the snowpack isn't falling. We're not getting the runoff from the Rockies into the Colorado, into Lake Powell, and then into Lake Mead.
Right.
This looks like it's sort of a new normal, maybe. Is it? Do you think, or is it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
When you look at long-term trends over the centuries, and they're getting better and better now about looking back and seeing what the climate was like 1,000 years ago and moving forward. The real problem in southern Arizona that people I don't think understand, when you look at the Cap Canal and you look at Arizona state law, there's the number one term that water managers around here use is overdraft. We're using more water than falls naturally,
Sure.
So we depend on the Central Arizona Project to pump water 300 miles uphill in an open concrete ditch through the middle of the Arizona desert.
And that's after Lake Mead as well. So we're getting it last, basically, except in Mexico.
A soup by the time
Except in
it gets
Mexico.
there.
Sorry, go ahead.
And what's been happening over the past decade is, Lake Mead has been falling an average of 12 feet a year.
Yeah.
When Lake Mead hits 1,075 feet above sea level, that's when water restrictions go into effect. And so right now, Lake Mead on average is losing 12 feet a year. 1075 is when restrictions go into effect. And right now we're only 6 inches above, or 6 feet above that. So within the next year, it looks real good, like water restrictions will be put into place. Well, Rosemont Copper, of course, wants to use a bunch of that, Central Arizona Water Project.
They count.
And
they're not like excluded from our allotment.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that people need to start thinking about is kind of a short-term historical perspective of what's going on in Central Arizona. In the 1940s, the water table in Tucson was at about 20 feet. Now it's at 300 feet. In the 1940s in Phoenix, you couldn't build a house with a basement because the water table was so high.
Okay.
Now it's at 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
And the way Arizona water law is you can't pull more water out of your underground aquifers than what can be naturally replenished. Well, we're already doing more than that, which is why we have to have the Central Arizona Project. The city and the county and everybody else wants to be talking about becoming sustainable, which is a great idea. We need to become sustainable, but becoming sustainable means staying within the carrying capacity of our natural environment. Also within our economic carrying capacity fits in there as well. But we need to start looking at the fact that if we're really going to become sustainable and the Cap Canal gets turned off, there's too many people living here to last, we'll pump our aquifers dry real quick.
Yeah.
And so those are the other things, we can't keep rubber stamping development. We can't have 60,000, home tracts, south of Tucson. The water's not there. The idea of a 100-year assured water supply is
Rosemont's
just silly.
going to use what, like 3,500 homes of equivalent or something?
Roughly,
something like that? Yeah, okay, so.
And then the water that after they go through that process, the water that they have left gets, pumped into what used to be a valley, because it's toxic and can't be, put back, can't be recharged.
Go into the Las Ciniegas Creek, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
So
into Pantano Wash, down the Rito River and down out. Or I guess I'm going this way, but yeah.
Let Marana deal with it. With their water treatment plant. And so these are some of the things that we really need to start thinking about. I mean, how many people without the Cap Canal and doing things properly, like doing water harvesting, and rooftop solar for energy, because we need to turn off, the coal burning, power plants and things like that, because they use a lot of water too. So there's all these interacting elements, and we need to start looking about, what does it really mean to be a desert dweller?
Yeah.
And also looking at the fact that, and Earth Day is the perfect time to start looking at this. If everything's interconnected, the natural world, people look at the desert and they go, there's nothing living out there. Well, this particular desert is pretty green, and really there's a lot out there.
Yeah, even in the Sahara Desert, there's stuff.
I was just hiking up Douglas Spring Trail this morning. There's a lot out there.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
And this is what we need to think about, because if we capture all the water for ourselves, then there's not enough left for the natural world. And what happens is, and Aldo Leopold pointed this out back in the 1940s, in an interconnected web, the food chain, every link in the food chain that we destroy, we're actually taking something away from ourselves, because at a very fundamental level, no food chain means no food.
Yeah.
And so we can't just grab all the water for ourselves, because then the rest of the natural world falls apart, and all of a sudden then, the food chain's gone. And so that's not good. There's no adaptation scenario, for that one.
Silent Green.
Yes. Take care of the overpopulation problem. Yeah. And so, but these are the things we really need to start looking at seriously. How do we deal with these issues and do it in a way that actually works, that still allows life to be fulfilling, that still has meaning and purpose, at the core, because that's who we are as people. That's the things that we actually need. More than another iPhone or, the latest, video game or whatever. Aspects of community, the relationships between us, to our communities, as well as to the natural world. All these relationships, these connections, need to be strengthened. And we need to start looking at ways that we can take these and use them in a way that can create a life that works for life, as opposed to working against life merely for profit and power.
Right. And what is power? It's on The Inconvenient Truth, the movie that when Al Gore took the scale and he had the world on. Let me get it right. He had the world on one side, or wait, I guess it was the world on one side, and then there was gold bars over here, and he was
Yeah.
on one side you have the world. Well, what good are the gold bars without the,
Exactly.
it's what the,
No economy on a dead planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so it's really not just so much conservation measures that we have to be concerned about. It's how we really transition ourselves then from where we are now and to where we can become sustainable, and what other than obviously we don't need 50 Rosemont mines or 10,000 developments.
We had a great opportunity, Dave and I, to collaborate on a couple elections. His run for state senate brought out a lot of information that I've learned from, called the relocalization. And relocalization is about getting our environment's caring capacity our focus. So what is Tucson's ability to care for the people that live here? And the community assessment sustainability inventory, which was part of the discussion, gives us different indicators than just the gross domestic product. It isn't about the gold bars. It's about how many quality of life issues, how much of our own food can we produce locally, how much of our own energy can we produce locally, how many jobs can we produce locally without having to have an international team come here and get jobs started with us. We have a relocalization, which is local economy. There's resource-based economy. There's a lot of knowledge in which we can use to transition into a resource-based economy that lives within the carrying capacity of our bioregion.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing in the relocalization movement right now. The transition initiative is kind of the global movement that's picked up on that, that transition, and looking at local currencies and all types of other things. But it's really about getting past the export economy model that the World Bank is always forcing onto the developing world, but it's the same way in our local communities as well. And this brings you're talking earlier about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Basically just a way to offshore all of our, the expensive jobs and just keep people in the service industry,
well, so
wage
make
jobs
the expensive jobs cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah.
Yeah.
And do it in such a way that, the way they're trying to do it is so that if any local community passes any type of regulation that might in any way impact profit, or the assumption that they will make so much profit, corporations, they're just sue. Say, we're going to do this and we're going to make $1 billion. Oh, you're not going to let us? Well, we're going to sue you for the $1 billion. And, it's just it's crazy talk. But we let them get away with it because they're corporations, and we think that's what we need to provide meaning. It's that whole concept that we're nothing more than an economic actor. And as Dave was saying, when you're measuring it by gross domestic product, everything goes into that figure, all the bads, not just goods, but it's also bads.
It's fun to work together, to group together, to create something. Mm-hmm. But when you do it at the expense of sending a giant cargo ship across the ocean, when you do like all these, like when you can come together and work together right locally, and do that there.
Yeah, and getting people to start thinking about how this works, because when you have an economic system that counts bads as goods, you end up, we're in this really strange, I think, point where the economic actor, the most productive economic actor in America, is the 30-something male who totals his car on the way to see his divorce lawyer and spends 6 months in intensive care.
Yeah,
this is not what you want to base an economy on for sustainability or for any long-term anything.
Okay, so let me see. What do we have? We have 15 minutes left. All right. So, no lawns, obviously. No golf courses, really. Can we get, they make AstroTurf. Can we use, the mini golf courses have it. Can't we use, I mean.
we could do that, and there's, sand golfing. There's ways you can get the hard pack down there. You can have a really nice putting green that's sand and not grass.
Do we need all these?
We have a good friend, is Chet Gardner. He's a musician, and he has a great plan for golf in the desert.
All right.
And you take one of those artificial turfs, and it's only easy to be this big, and you get out there on the golf course, and you put your mat down, you place your ball, and you hit it. Wherever it lands, you take that piece of grass.
Oh, and you put the mat down. That's great. That's actually a really good idea.
No lie.
You can carry your divot with you. Yeah, all right. What about reclaimed water? What can we do about that? Is that like?
Well, let's talk.
I mean,
at
least to do the golf courses. Like that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what makes sense to do in the desert? First of all.
Well, no watering makes sense.
Makes sense.
That's what I think. So.
If you start doing, high-speed inner-city rail, people that want to go golfing could get somewhere else where, it makes sense to, have a golf course maybe. But some of the other things, reclaimed water.
Well, I mean, what do we really use? Agriculture. We use it on agriculture. That's
we waste.
California's doing.
We waste a lot on. We grow alfalfa for California.
Cotton,
for California cattle.
Cotton uses a lot.
Yeah, it uses a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
We should be growing hemp. Is what we should be doing.
Well,
we could start looking at industrial. Uses. We could start doing some things that would make sense agriculturally. Where oil products and protein. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can make from hemp, paper, and on and on. Plus the medicinal uses of high CBD contents for cancer patients now. So there's a number of things we could start doing differently in that way. The other thing is looking at right now we're set up to. People go in, they turn their water on, and it goes down the drain or whatever, and they don't think about it. We can start doing gray water, harvesting, so people could have, gray water for watering their own outdoor, plants and gardens and things like that, which would lower the impacts of that.
Gray water is your sink,
tub, washing machine, shower,
tub,
those types of things. Yeah.
Not the toilet.
Basically everything but the toilet. Everything but the toilet. And so those are some ways we could, conserve more water locally. And doing that would put less water would have less requirement for wastewater treatment. And at that point, we can start doing things like earth machines, where you can actually have wastewater treatment for a city in a much smaller footprint that does a much better job for a lot lower cost. But there's not all that mass construction up front that, provides jobs and things. So we've got to start balancing those things out as well. But there's a number of ways that we can go about that. The main thing, though, is just we have to face the fact that, 500,000 people or 1 million people can't survive with the resources that are here without depending on a lot of imports. And we've got to get, we've got to get beyond that point because that's not sustainable. And that's where you start getting into unemployment problems.
We can't import the water.
We can't import, and we can't invent
well,
new water supply.
The Cap Canal doesn't cut it as importing water. Yeah.
And that's the thing about sustainability. If the city and county wants to actually look at sustainability, they have to understand that one of the basic tenets of sustainability is that you cannot consider yourself sustainable at any other person or any other region's expense.
Yeah.
And as long as the Colorado River is not reaching the sea,
right.
we're not sustainable.
We're not sustainable, exactly.
End of story.
So, desal?
Well,
what do you think about that? Well, I mean, at least for California.
It takes a lot of energy.
No, for real. We're not Californian who care. Well, no, we should care. I mean, but desalination what you make a big solar desalination plant?
It's energy.
Well, if it's solar, let's say it's solar.
And you still have to transport it all the way up from Mexico. I think there's other things that we could focus in on, like composting toilets. You know, we want Raytheon to retool maybe into some.
No, I didn't mean for us, the desalination. I meant cut California off of the Colorado River water. And then
take their allotment over here.
Yeah.
We need to grow more alfalfa.
Yeah. But there's some problems. One of the largest state-of-the-art desalination plants is in Perth, Western Australia, and it looks on paper it looks real good. But now they've got these big mounds of salt piling up.
Right.
They don't know what to do with. They try putting some of them back at increase the salinization of
why don't you do a molten salt reactor?
And it just wipes out. It just wipes out their coastal fisheries along there.
Yeah, you can't put it really back in the ocean.
And so
you'd have to serve it as sea salt or something.
So let's get the blood pressure and heart attacks going. So there's all these these unintended consequences,
and
it's all to protect.
It's
not
sustainable.
It's based on growth.
Right.
It's
Is it that we just really have too many people then?
I mean, we're already, even with the level of inequity and injustice that we see globally right now, we're already beyond the carrying capacity of the earth, And if everybody on the planet were to get the American lifestyle, which is what, this is what the so-called, that movement to spread democracy, with drones, just to get everybody to have that lifestyle. Well, if that were to actually happen,
if India and China do that, then it's...
We would need 5 planets the size of Earth, 2 for the resources and 3 to hold the waste and garbage.
Sure.
So...
And don't forget, in 40 years, we'd need twice as many.
Yeah. And the thing is, everybody tells me, I start talking about overpopulation and things we can do to, start reducing population. And everybody, the other side is always going, oh, well, who are you going to kill first? It's like,
well, you just don't have as many children.
First of all, that's it. I mean, first of all, none of us are getting out of this alive. And second of all, the only people you have to kill are the ones who are immortal. So that takes care of that argument. And otherwise, when you look at every time in all the developing world, industrialized countries, you give women the freedom to control their own bodies, that right, that basic human right, and start doing, birth control education, family planning education. And when people have that and also have the resources for pre and postnatal health care in particular, their kids can be born healthy and grow to adulthood so they can take care of them in their old age. They don't need to have as many. I mean, Europe and America, birth rates of the existing non-migrant population is at 0.7 for Europe and 0.9 for America. So that we're already at that point. We know how we can do that. And if we were to support that going forward, we could actually start reducing global population levels down to a sustainable limit over the next couple generations, while at the same time we're doing things like riparian habitat, restoration, replanting forests, and doing those things that we know will actually mitigate global warming, because that's the stuff that'll suck it, start rebuilding topsoil, because we've lost, half the topsoil on the planet.
We're almost out of time, so you had a question just that you wanted to pose, Dave Crudup? You were saying in the green room that you wanted to...
Oh, well, what we were talking about, one of the things we want to do with
just really quick, you have like a minute.
We want to have the Chautauqua so we can talk about this water this time.
Yeah.
And
what do we do?
What do we do? What are we going to do for Tucson's future with the water that we already have?
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to bring together the people who care most about Tucson to discuss it with the people who are the brightest to know.
Okay, great. So we have Earth Day events coming up tomorrow, which is Saturday, the April 18th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Reed Park at the band shell. There's the official Earth Day, the corporate one, but there is a Reclaim Earth Day booth there. So go see that. Just go see the booth. There's a glue factory open house and block party to save Oak Flat, Sunday, April 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on 4th Avenue and 26th. There's Fort Lowell Park Ramada and Water Chautauqua May 9th on the 22nd. The Fort Lowell is, and we gotta get out of here. We can do all this by ourselves. We can vote with our dollars, not buy products. We can do this. We can conserve, and we can tell everyone. That's our show. Stay tuned for our annual music show in 1 month on Friday the 15th of May. And Access Tucson will be here at least through June. So support Illegal Knowledge and Access Tucson. Let's keep it community media year. I'd like to thank Dave Cruto and Dave Ewald for being on the show. And I'd like to thank all our show, all of our crew, and everyone at Access Tucson. I do thank all of you guys for watching. Keep watching. All right.
Thanks for having us on, Michael.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you in 1 month.
Three-Eyed Billy, your guide to the apocalypse. Three-Eyed Billy.
Well, hello there, future squirrel eaters. I'm Three-Eyed Billy, here to tell you to embrace the apocalypse. These are exciting times, and they're only going to get excitinger. Who'd have thought little old humans could create real live earthquakes? Thousands of them. In the apocalypse, God is man and man is God, or at least a bunch of oil companies. Turns out, if you inject billions of gallons of toxic water from oil drilling deep into the ground, what was once an act of God is now an act of corporate profitability. Hey, it works for climate. Why not shake the very planet, too? for jobs and freedom. Lots of freedom. Like the freedom of California to water crops with wastewater from oil drilling, or the freedom to squirt toxic sludge into drinking aquifers. The less water we have, the more apocalypse there is to go around. And plenty of heavy metals, arsenic, benzene, and radioactive stuff too. A whole new cycle of apocalypse is just beginning. So get your squirrel stick and conveniently flammable oil-infused almonds and enjoy. Deliciously apocalyptic. Ew.